Hey, hey, what is good? What's good? Hey, friend, how are you tonight? I am going live because I have an incredible guest tonight who is doing awesome things for the kingdom of God. And I would love to have you guys meet him and hear about what he's doing because it's such a blessing to so many people and it is going to bless you. Somebody out there is going to hear his testimony. Somebody out there is going to hear about the ministry, and it is really going to touch you right in your heart of hearts. And if you are listening to this podcast right now and you don't know Jesus, listen, stick around because Jesus changes everything. And that is the title of today's show because it's true. I was lost and now I'm found. And I know that that's such a cliche thing to say, but it is so true. It's so true about my life. Hey, Sarah, you were a pastor's kid. Yeah, you're right. And the reputation of pastors' kids precede us. And, pastors' kids, we don't get into heaven because we're pastors' kids. God has no grandchildren. We all have our own life story and we all come to the Lord on our own. And so in my life, those tests in my life became my testimony. And in my guest's life, his what led up to his salvation and what led to him starting this ministry is so powerful, you guys. And so, anyway, how was your Christmas or holidays? It bothers me that so many people are so jump down the throat. Don't say happy holidays. I don't play that game, and I'll tell you why. Because I have friends who are Jewish and they don't celebrate Christmas. And so I have friends in other countries. You know what? The Remedy podcast, you guys, was voted because of viewership, listenership, whatever, one of the top 10 podcasts in our Christian genre, which I am totally blown away. But do you know that the gospel of Jesus Christ, the good news, was heard in over 15 countries because of the Remedy? And in those countries, there's lots of stuff going on that isn't going on in the United States of America. But what is going on is Jesus, and Jesus is for all of us. And so anyway, Jesus changes everything. He changed everything for me. He'll change everything for you. And so, how was your Christmas? If you celebrate Christmas, mine was awesome. It was mellow. We went and hung out with some friends, and it was just a super, super day. And then we came home and just chilled out. And really, we had a wonderful. Our town does a neat Christmas Eve service outdoors. There's a church in town that does an outdoor candlelight service under the stars. Because we live in Texas and Christmas time is often still tolerable weather outside, we get to be outside. And so anyway, we bring our chairs and we get to worship the Lord outside in public, and it is such a blessing. And so anyway, that was our Christmas Eve. That led to our Christmas Day, and it was awesome. So I hope that yours was great. Every year, everything is different, and who knows what next year will bring. But right now, we just are dealing with today. So anyway, I want to bring in our guest. Our guest is named Adam Pearson. Why don't you guys welcome Adam Pearson to the stage? Adam, welcome to The Remedy with Sarah Amazing Grace.
Hello, Sarah. Good to see you again.
Yes. Well, great to see you, Adam. Adam, why don't you tell our listeners, watchers, followers, why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself?
Let's see. Well, grew up a little Jewish kid that got in a lot of trouble. My dad and stepdad both died when I was young, and my mom had to raise us by herself, my brother and I kind of just grabbed a skateboard right around 12 or so, and hit the streets and just skated. Got in a lot of got in trouble and just wanted nothing to do with God, even though I always knew He was there. And then right around 20, He grabbed a hold of my life, and everything changed.
Rad. Everything changed. All
Yep.
right. Well,
That's
yeah.
right, right about when I met you.
Yeah. Yeah. So Adam and I actually go way back. I met Adam right about the time when the Lord was, um, breaking through, I guess, and Adam was giving his life to the Lord, or giving his life over to the Lord. And it was about the same time that I got saved. And if you're a longtime listener to this show, you know that I was saved when I was 17 years old, in that bathroom in Lodi, California, and moved back to Southern Oregon. And that's where I met Adam. Adam and I are about the same age, and about that same time. And so he was, it was a move of the Holy Spirit. So, Adam, do you want to share with the folks how the Lord found you?
Well, let me just make sure my phone is off. It's kind of ringing in my ear. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. Um, well, I was after high school. I had a friend that lived in Portland, Oregon, and one of my best friends, his name's Andy Cowan. He invited me to go up there. So after high school, I drove up there and met all these skater guys and stuff, and we just hit it off instantly. And they invited me to come live with them. So I just thought, why not? So I went home, told my mom I'm going to move to Portland, and she was an old hippie child, so she's like, yeah, go sell your oats or whatever. So moved up to Portland and just skated and snowboarded and just fell in with a crowd of really incredibly creative people, like photographers, and one of my roommates had a snowboard company, so we had pros coming through all the time, and had some friends. The friends that were photographers used to shoot for Thrasher and Transworld, and it was kind of what I always wanted to do, and it was fun for a season, and then it kind of I just got old, and I was looking around for men that I actually could look up to, and I just didn't know any. We went to a lot of parties and did a lot of uh, activities and stuff, and there's 40, 50-year-old guys hitting on 15-year-old girls and stuff. And it's just like, what you guys are losers. Like, where are the men? Like, where are the guys that have like weight? And then I just kind of started going crazy, and started locking myself in my bedroom and didn't want to go out, didn't want to hang out with my friends. I just was contemplating, like, okay, so life is just about what, getting married and then having kids and a house, and if you're lucky, vacations and cars or boats and just stuff. And it was just kind of crazy, suicidal even, and just thinking, like, there's just no reason. There's no reason to live. And so one night, I I went to bed early. It was on a Wednesday night. I went to bed early, and I remember I just woke up in my bedroom and I sat up and I just spoke it into my room. I just said, you know what, I'm going to Medford this weekend, where I was from. And then I looked at the clock and it said 8:30, and I went back to sleep. And then that weekend came, Saturday came, and I woke up around 6, left, drove down to Medford, about 4 hours away. And I got here in town and just thought, okay, well, what am I going to do now? All my friends have moved away. My friend Andy, he had moved away. He was living with a bunch of pro skaters and stuff in San Francisco. I hadn't talked to him for a few years. And my mom had moved. And I just thought, what am I going to do? And, here I am, 20 years old. And I just thought, you know what? I'm going to go to Andy's parents' house and just thank them for bringing me along on so many of their family excursions and things they did. They didn't even really like me as a kid. I was a pretty foul mouth troublemaker. And their son Andy is actually a pretty good guy. So we were a good balance because like I was the yin, he was the yang. And anyway, so I figured I'll just go say hi to his parents. So I drove over to his parents' house and I knocked on their door, and lo and behold, Andy opened the door. And I was like, "Whoa, what are you doing here?" And he says, "I just moved back." I'm like, "All right." So, it was kind of a neat little uh, rendezvous kind of thing. So we walked into his kitchen, or his parents' kitchen, and we were just hanging out. And he was telling me about living down, with all these pros, and it was cheap. It was just a cheap way to live. He said it was like living with children. And I said, man, I have been thinking the same things. And and then he just got really serious. And he looked me right in the face and he said, Adam, I got something I got to tell you. And I was thinking, oh man, my best friend's gay. Well, like that's what I was thinking. And he just says, I gave my life to Jesus. And I looked at him and I said, what? And I said, how did that happen? He said, well, I mean, I was living with all these pros, and he said, I just started kind of going crazy. Like I wanted to grow up. And I was following him and tracking with him. And he said, I just needed to get out of there. So I bought a bus ticket, and I was on my way to go home. I was waiting at the bus station or right outside of the coffee shop. And he said, man, I just sat on this curb and I just put my face in my hands and I just started crying. And then he's a pretty big dude. He's 6'3", 225. He's a pretty big guy. And he said he looked up and he saw another guy riding by on a 10-speed bike, and they kind of made eye contact, and Andy looked back down, and when he looked back up, the guy was standing right there. And the guy says to him, he says, hey man, you okay? And Andy says, no, yeah, I'm fine. Well, I'm all right, dude. And the guy says, well, I don't know what you're dealing with, but what I do know is you need Jesus Christ. And Andy just says, he was like, come on, I already know this stuff, man. I've heard it all before. I'm not into that religious stuff. And the guy says, I'm not going to push him on you, but what I will tell you is that when you're all alone and you have nothing else, if you give your life to Christ, you'll find it. And Andy says, what do you mean? And they just kind of started talking, and Andy got up and went and actually had lunch with this guy. And they just started talking. And it turns out this guy had gotten saved, sold everything he had, bought a 10-speed bike, and just rides around preaching the gospel. And he made it to Andy. And then Andy thought, you know what? Maybe I should do that. Yeah. And Andy was telling me this in his kitchen, and he's just like, man, I just knew it. I just felt this. No, you go home. And he's just thought, okay, I'm getting on the bus. So he gets on the bus and he comes home, and a few days later, I'm knocking on his door. And I said, that's crazy. He's like, yeah, man, I came home, and that very first night I was home, and like I didn't know what I was going to do. I just needed to rest. So I went to bed early, and I remember I just got on my knees, and he says, and I just gave my life to Jesus in that bedroom. And he said, man, I felt it. I felt the forgiveness. And he says, and the very first prayer I ever prayed was, oh God, let me tell this to Adam.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at him, I'm like, no way. And he's like, yes. I said, when did you pray that? He said, it was that night. I said, well, what night? He said, I don't know, a couple nights ago, man. It's like, I don't know, Wednesday. I said, really? What time? He's like, I don't know what time. He says, it's probably 8:30. And I said, Andy, I was asleep last Wednesday at 8:30. And I seriously sat up in my bed and said, I've got to go to Medford. And I looked at the clock and it said 8:30. And now I'm standing right here. And it was weird because the whole storm in my head, all the anxieties of the future and what's going to happen, what's, just what do I do with my life and just all the stuff was instantly, for that moment, it just stopped. And it was like the water in my head was like the lake was calm. And it was an absolute crossroads of like, and then I just said to Andy, I said, you know what, Andy? I've been looking everywhere else other than where I should be looking. And I just knew I got to get right with Jesus. And it was just like, and that started it. And I just knew like, okay. So I a day or two later, I was walking next to a lake on this path. And I remember I was just wrestling with it. And I was just like, God, I just can't do it. I can't be one of them. The Christians, the music and the conversations and the theoretical debates. And, I grew up in Pennsylvania too for a year growing up. So we had Amish around and Mennonites and all these really, prim and proper denominations. And you just see that, it's so stuffy. And I was just like, I can't do it, God. I can't be one of them. I just can't. And it's one of the first times I heard from the Lord. And I just felt this. I don't want you to be one of them either. Adam, you follow me. And I just remember like sitting back like, well, I can do that. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I mean, I can do that. And then, so I moved back up to Portland, and I asked one of my roommates if he helped me move down back out to Medford. And within 3 days, had all my stuff packed, move on to a little ranch in my buddy's mom's house, and figured, okay, what do I want to do now? I quit school, I quit everything, and I was a Christian now. I didn't know what that meant. And the lady that went there, or that I was living at her house, she went to Ashland Christian Fellowship. And so she told me, you should go to this church. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So that's when I started going there. And then Andy, or your dad, he had the whole library of tapes. And I would just take armfuls and just go straight through the Bible with him. And then John Corson commentaries and Chuck Smith and Spurgeon and anybody I could get my hands on. I would just eat, sleep, drink, Bible, skateboarding, snowboarding. I got a job at a gas station, and I would just witness to everybody that would come in. They'd get so mad at me, or some would actually drive across town because they knew, like, okay. And we'd go above and beyond because some of my friends got saved at that gas station too. We'd wash headlights and windshields and check oil and just, and then a guy pulled in once that built houses, and he asked me if I wanted a job, and I started working with him. And that was the guy, Gary Shaw, that actually built that church, Ashland Christian Fellowship. And so it was just this whole, it was like family, instant family. And I just had no idea how blessed I was by getting to learn from all these teachers who are, international guys that live here locally. And I had no idea. Fully grateful for that. And since then, it's been a crazy ride.
Sure has. Life is a crazy, crazy ride. Man, so many twists and turns and craziness. But now, I kind of had, this show's not about me, but I had this revelation a while back about taking up your cross and following Christ because, growing up and learning about taking up your cross, it was always like the same cross that Jesus was, lay down your life and follow Christ. And I had this revelation that the cross is your calling, to pick up your calling, and that the cross was Jesus's calling, the cross of salvation. That was Jesus's calling. That's not my calling. My calling isn't to die for once and for all mankind. My calling is something different. But I had to lay down my life and pick up that calling on my life, and that calling will crush you, and you will be beaten and bruised and trashed and all of that stuff when your calling comes calling. And so you have been in ministry in one form or fashion now for 30, what is it, 37, almost 40 years. And I don't want to date us as far as time wise, but it's been a lot. It's been a long time. And so now though it's a full circle moment. You've moved away, you've moved to the islands, you've moved far away, come back, and the Lord brought you right back to where he called you to initially. And I'm going to play a video really quick, and then I'm going to let Adam that'll be a lead into what Adam is doing now.
Thank you for being a friend. Travel down a road and back again. Your heart is true, you're a pal and a confidant. I'm not ashamed to say, I hope it always will stay this way. My hat is off, won't you stand up and take a bow? And if you threw a party, invited everyone you knew, well, you would see the biggest gift would be from me, and the card attached would say, thank you for being a friend. And if you threw a party, invited everyone you knew, well, you would see the biggest gift would be from me, and the card attached would say, thank you for being a friend. Thank you for being a friend. Thank you for being a friend. The biggest gift, the biggest. Thank you for being my friend.
And that was just a short little clip of what your life is like on the daily. Adam, can you share what we just had a little taste of there?
Oh, so we have a little skateboard ministry going. It's called Faceplant Ministries, and I wasn't planning on it at all. But we had moved back from Portland. My wife, we moved up there so she could finish dental school. And we came back, and school had just started for a public school. So we live right next to the high school that I went to. And a couple skater kids were walking by my house one morning going to school, and I was sitting out in front of my house and drinking a cup of coffee and sat on the porch, reading my Bible and stuff. And these two kids walked by, and they started throwing gravel at my trailer that was parked up in my driveway. And just like, I perked up, what the heck? And then they just kind of ran off, and it's like, yeah, whatever. But a couple weeks later, same two kids walking down the sidewalk, and they don't see me, and I'm just sitting on the bench on my porch. And one kid looks both ways, and then he just backhands the headlight of my truck, just punches it. And I'm just thinking, what the heck? These guys have totally targeted my stuff. So I didn't even think about it. I just jumped up and I crossed over the yard and caught up with one kid, and he was just backpedaling, and it's not me, it wasn't me, man. And his friend kind of scurried off, and then his friend stopped and turned around and saw that I had his buddy. And I said, hey, bro, come here, come talk to me. And the guy was just like, whoa, what do you want? And I said, just come talk to me. And he's like, well, what are you going to say? And I just said, bro, man up, come here and talk to me. And so you just see it was, fight or flight. You just kind of like let his guard down and walked back. And here we are, all three of us standing in front of my house. And I mean, it's one of those times when you hear the Lord and it's clear as day. And I just heard this, bless these guys. And so now I'm looking at these two high school kids who would have been my friends. And I'm just thinking, bless these guys. And so all I could say was, hey, man, you guys like lattes? And they just said, what? What's a latte? I'm like, it's like espresso and milk. And you guys drink coffee at all? And they, oh, yeah, we drink coffee. We drink coffee, yeah. I'm like, okay, we'll make you a deal. I'll make you both a latte to go if you guys leave my stuff alone. And they looked at each other and said, well, all right. So I have a golden retriever and Penny, and she was out there. So they just kind of wrestled my dog in the front yard. And I went inside and made him some coffees and came out. And we just started talking about life and stuff, and pretty rough lives. One of these guys doesn't even go home because just all the drugs and alcohol and there's some abuse stuff going on, and he just couch surfs and then walks across town to go to North High School. And his buddy actually walks with him, and it's pretty rough. And so these guys left, and I started thinking, like, gosh, is there anything for these guys nowadays? Because there was when I was a kid. They had some skateboard ministries, and that was horrible. It was horrible to those guys because you'd have to go skate, listen to a little Bible talk, and then you could skate again. And I'd always be the guy like, come on. This is like, you guys are like pushing propaganda, bro. Like, come on, dude, this is bait and switch. And they'd be like, no, it's not. You know what we do here. Well, anyway, the guy, Ken Pritchett, he was actually on that video, the bald dude. Him and I are friends now. And I called him up and I said, hey, Ken, what would you do, man? We got all these skate kids and, nothing for them. Not like we had. And he says, well, why don't you try to find like a little warehouse or a barn or a garage or something? He said, you put some ramps inside, these kids will start coming. And I'm like, all right. And so I prayed about it. I said, Lord, if you want to do something, this was my prayer. I said, you can use any ding dong you want to. You may as well use me. And I kind of just left it at that. And then a few weeks later, I was driving down the road, had lunch with Christina, my wife, and I saw this old gas station that I'd never noticed before. And it was all molded over, and it was something out of a horror movie. And I just thought, wow, look at that piece of junk. That place would be perfect. So I skip traced the owner and called him up and I said, hey, man, you want to sell that place? And he's like, well, yeah, I want to sell it, but no one can use it. And I said, why not? He said, because it's landlocked. He's an old country singer, kind of like a Johnny Cash kind of guy, super neat guy. And he's like, yeah, they landlocked it. They built a bridge out in the front. They never gave us access. Which is actually illegal to do in Oregon, but they do it anyways, and they just say, sue us. And, so it's been vacant since 2007. And I said, well, I want to do a skateboard ministry. We don't necessarily need access or parking. And he says, well, I don't know, can you do that? And I said, well, let me do some homework. And so I talked to the city and the county and ODOT, and everyone said, yeah, you can do that. So I skated up to his house. He lives like 10 houses up the street from me. And was having coffee with him and his wife on their back porch. And one of his real estate friends had shown it to me. And the place was horrible, and broken windows and feces all over the walls and needles everywhere, cracked pipes. I mean, it was bad. And his friend, Dawn, said, this is what he wants for it. And I'm like, okay, well, okay. So I met Marty, he was the owner. And I said, well, Marty, I'll give you a full asking price. And then he's like, well, I can't take that much. I need like 3 times as much. And I was like, he says, how can you even, where'd you even get that number? And I said, that's what Don said. And he's like, Don said that? I just don't know. And then I said, well, because I'm a contractor too. I said, well, Marty, didn't you want your whole kitchen tiled? Didn't you want like old Mexican terracotta and stuff? He said, well, yeah, yeah. I said, well, what if I go ahead and just tile your whole kitchen for you? You don't have to think about anything. We'll be in and out, and we'll just put that in the deal. I'll give you a full asking price. And he's just like, and his wife was just sitting there in a rocking chair crocheting the back porch. They got a stuffed bobcat right next to her, and she's just and she just looks at him and she says, honey, it's for the children. And he's like, you know what, by golly, let's do it. And so he just signed papers that night and came down and started just ripping and tearing things apart. And I had a friend come down who works for a solar company, solar panels. They have a roofing division. And he says, hey, man, I think I can get you a roof donated. And I said, really? Because the roof was trashed. And he goes, give me some time. And then I said, all right. So we just kept working, and there was just so much stuff to get out of here and clean up and sanitize and all the tile off the floors and everything. And then about 6 months later, he calls me up. He's like, hey, bro, I got it. I said, what? He's like, yep, I got you the well-down PVC roofing. I got you all the metal and flashing you need. You just come down and talk to my crew and see if they'll put it in for you. So, all right. So got some donuts and went down and talked to a bunch of roofers in the morning. And they were like, I'm in. So for the next couple of weeks on the weekends, they came down and re-roofed the place. And then we didn't have any ramps or anything. And then one guy, Kobe Brosser, Zav Brosser.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the Brossers.
Of course.
So, yeah. So Kobe, he's like, hey, bro, we got this old half pipe that we're not really using. Do you want it? And I said, yeah. And we went there to his house, and he had other ramps and boxes and stuff. He said, just take it all. So he helped us take it apart and get it here and put it back together. And then we refinished everything. And we've pretty much been given all the ramps, and just people just kind of keep donating goods and stuff. And, I've had to float everything pretty much, just, keep the lights on and stuff, but we don't charge the kids to come in. They just don't have anything. And we got like over 150 kids signed up now.
So amazing.
We feed them every night they come, and we skate for about an hour and a half. Then we do a little Bible talk, and then we skate some more. And it's pretty basic, but it works,
So amazing. So amazing. I mean, it's such an amazing full circle moment of, it's, what the Lord used in your life from coming from a home life, a lot like what a lot of these kids are dealing with.
Yeah.
And using that, as a springboard to change your life so that then you can change others. And that's just how the gospel works, that once you're infected, then you infect others. You're a super spreader. You become a super spreader of the gospel.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. It's so
May
amazing.
May never recover.
May they never recover. Yeah. It's so, only the Lord could write a story like that. Only the Lord could, dovetail. Only the dove can dovetail like that, where
Sure.
he can take something and make it full circle like that. And the story, who knows, down the road, years from now, where this will even go and unfold and go further, and, the ripples in the pond someday, when, as we're fully known, you'll be able to see from beginning to end where this all fits and how incredible. Adam, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I fully agree with you. I'm not looking for instant changes for these guys, gals. We got a lot of girl skateboarders too. My buddy and I joke about it. It's the 20-year plan. 20 years is a lot of time when we'll see stuff come back, and the guy will be like, oh my gosh, Do you remember when we used to do this when I was a kid? Like, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah. So, God's into growing trees, not weeds.
True story.
And so it takes time. And in the meantime, these kids they're just cool people to be around, creative, and they're respectful when they come here, to the most part. They're
Yeah.
kids.
Sow them roots deep,
Yeah.
deep roots. Dude, that's
Yeah.
so rad. It's so rad. And you guys, if you want to learn more about Faceplant Ministries, you can go to faceplantministries.com. You can look up Adam Pearson on Facebook. You can go to Faceplant Ministries on Facebook. If you want to donate to Faceplant Ministries, you can go to faceplantministries.com and donate there. They are not in the business of making money. They're in the business of saving souls and providing nourishment for these kids who, not just, food and barbecue, but, for their souls for eternity. And so it's rad. And Adam is a perfect example, an all grown up example of how these ministries, they do produce incredible fruit that then goes on to produce more fruit, and sowing those seeds. And it's so incredible. It's so incredible. Adam, do you have any pearls of wisdom? This show is called The Remedy. And right now we really are living in a time of the great revealing, a time of revelation where the darkness doesn't hide anymore. And we're living in that, spiritual battle made manifest in the physical. And so the remedy is Jesus. What's your remedy that you would want to share with the people that are watching?
Well, I was just thinking about it. There's a scripture that I think about often, and I think it's in Hebrews, but it says that David served his generation and then laid down with his fathers. And I think about that a bunch. David lived at the appointed time when he was supposed to. He was far from perfect, but he trusted the Lord, and God did amazing things through him at that period. And it, like you said, it has rippled through eternity. But he served the generation that God put him in, and the people that God put him around. And then his turn was over. And there's been a lot of turnover since then. But right now, it's our turn. And it won't last forever. And this is our turn to raise up the next generation to love the Lord. That's the goal. Money, ministries, family, stuff comes and goes. The whole Bible, it's a relationship. It's the book of love, the love letters. It's a conversation piece between us and the Lord, and that's the whole goal: to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, all your soul, all your strength. And in so doing that, just keeping it simple, your relationship with the Lord simple, everything else, all the issues of life will flow from that. And
Yeah.
for me, I'm a pretty simple guy. Like, I've had a lot of people say, like, "Hey man, we've got this really rad curriculum, and everyone's got acronyms for stuff, and there's this, and there's SOAR, and there's SOAP, and there's FOE, and it's like, like, no, I'm not pushing a curriculum. I can't keep up with it, and then once we start falling behind, now I'm feeling guilty. It's like, no, I love the Lord, and I want to show these guys and gals who the Lord is. That's why we actually read a lot of scripture. I only have their attention span for about 20 minutes, but I try to read the Bible to them so they can hear it for themselves. So many times we hear about the Bible or we hear about God, and it's like, I want you guys to hear him, what he says, because that's what you have to wrestle with. Not what I say he says, but what he says. And when you guys meet him and you fall in love, it changes your life, he changes everything.
Yeah.
So I would just say an acronym, KISS.
It's
Keep it simple, stupid.
Stupid. Yeah.
That's
True story. True
Yeah.
story. And like you said, this is our turn. Do with your life, when our turn is over and you have to answer for your life, and what God gave you, the talents that he gave you, the calling that he put on your life. Are you going to be like, well, or are you going to be like, dude, I ran full out, like in Hebrews, yeah, keep it simple, stupid.
Right.
Like,
It never feels
um,
that way though.
yeah.
It always just feels real.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like it says, uh, if you could only see the great cloud of witnesses, these are people who had their turn. Now they're in glory and they're watching us have our turn and they're cheering for us as we're doing our stuff. I'm paraphrasing, but it says you would cast off every weight of every sin. And basically you would run the race full out like your hair was on fire. If you could see what is cheering you on, all these people, if you could see behind the veil, you would run full out. And
Or just be freaked out.
or be freaked out. Yeah.
I talk about that with the kids. Like, if God actually unveiled what's going on behind the scenes, we couldn't handle it. It's too much. And so he's given us just enough. And it's more than enough, really, So that's my pearl is keeping it simple. Like, things come and things go. Take your relationship with Jesus serious. And to each person, that's different. I know some people that will guilt other people because they don't read the Bible in the mornings, and some people are like, I read it at night. And it's like, well, that's less holy. It's like, you're less holy. Like,
That's right.
I got my own walk with the Lord.
Yeah.
Just keep it safe.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: is when we stumble, come back to the Lord. He's not surprised. I had a guy say to me the other day, Adam, God took your stupidity into account before he saved you. Like, well, that's good news. He's not surprised.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I think. Gotta love those backhanded compliments.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. People are so people-y.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing. And you guys, thank you for tuning in. I hope that you have heard pearls of wisdom here and that you've taken away, nuggets in your heart. I hope you've taken away pieces of the Lord in your heart. And if you're not saved, if you don't know Jesus, today is the day of salvation. Today is the day that the Lord has made. Today is the day that we will rejoice and be glad in it. No matter what your day is like, today is the day that the Lord has made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. And if you don't yet know Jesus, all you have to do is cry out to him. He's right there. He's waiting for you. And as always, you guys, I love you. Peace.